Hey y'all, welcome back to New Slang. I'm your host, music journalist Thomas Mooney. We're ending this week being joined by singer-songwriter Lera Lynn. I'm so glad we were able to get this one scheduled. She's releasing a new album this Friday called On My Own. That's tomorrow, October 23rd. So I interviewed her a couple of years back when she was releasing her previous album, Plays Well With Others. That was for Wide Open Country, which it's probably up there still, so if you want to go read it, go check it out. Anyway, as I remember, I was in Ruidoso, and we spoke for about 20 minutes on the phone, and she was just so enjoyable to speak with, so insightful and thoughtful, and excited to share those songs. I just knew that I needed more time talking with her, and probably more so listening to what she had to say at some point. And like that last time, speaking with her has just been so enlightening to the creative process. I think if you've listened to any of her songs in her rich catalog of music, you'll realize that she's not mailing any of this in. She's thought about these songs and herself as an artist and a storyteller, and of course like the multitude of reasons why she's a creator, and obviously so many other things that are tied to the creative process and the industry at large. This new album, it's just so great, and it's incredibly important as well. For starters, as the title alludes, essentially every aspect of this album was done solely by her. The writing, the playing, the production, all of it. I think that's so bold and honestly really brave. It's so easy to second guess yourself. It's so easy to talk yourself out of doing things simply out of fear. And that's obviously such a natural feeling. It's understandable. Now, On My Own, it isn't a great album solely due to Lera doing it all. I have to feel that deep down, had she done this album with a producer and with other musicians on it, maybe some other co-writers, whatever, it has still been a good and worthy effort. But make no mistake, some of that magic that Lera comes across on this is because she was doing it all by herself. As one would say, necessity is the mother of invention. And there's just aspects of this album that wouldn't have happened the way they did without it being these conditions. Anyway, we touch on all of these in the interview, so I won't just rehash them again. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Soto. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas. And that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly Soto is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus. And it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest Soto plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. Okay, I think that's enough housekeeping notes. Let's go and get on to the interview. Here is Lera Lynn. Well, obviously you have this new record going to be coming out in just a couple of weeks. And, you know, one of the big parts of this record is that it's all you, that you, there's no co-writes, it's all you producing, playing the instruments, everything. It's a singular vision, as you've put it. I guess, like, how important was it to, well, I guess, like, initially, was that always, like, the idea for this next record? Was it to be a just all you singular vision album?
It wasn't really a plan of mine, actually. I started recording just for fun. I had, an inbox and had an idea and was inspired and had the time and really enjoyed doing it by myself. Before I started working on this record, I'd worked with several different producers and co-writers and was really trying to find the right collaborative partner for my next album. And I just, nothing felt quite right to me. I feel like there were a lot of hurdles. And, one day I just thought, I'm going to just try something to see how this goes. I had very little gear, especially on the recording side. I didn't have drums, I had a few guitars and some amps and that's about it. And I had such a great time recording that song that I did another one, which was just recently released called Let Me Tell You Something. Still no drums. I was using paint canvas for a kick drum sound, for instance. And I kept working in that way. I think I did 3 songs, and then I spoke to a producer who will go unnamed, and said, I'm actually having some success recording on my own right now, and I think I'm going to keep chasing this. And he told me that he felt that was a big mistake, and I don't know if that's because he wanted me to work with him or if he really thought that I would fail at doing it. But regardless of his motives, I really felt even more inspired to do it myself. And I think, as I continued with the process, it became important to me to demonstrate to other women who might be inspired to do the same thing, to do it, that you can do it. Because through my career, I've had a lot of people saying, no, you shouldn't do X, Y, or Z, or you can't make these decisions on your own, different things like that. So It was very liberating in that way, and an important point for me to make.
Yeah. What I was wondering is, how, like you mentioned, just kind of like having the lack of gear, because obviously you're a front woman, and in Americana country, whatever we want to call this, the traditional instruments are always acoustic guitar or piano. That's just kind of how songs usually start off. And, I guess I was reading on one of your posts about how you did start out with a lot more trying to figure out like the drum machine, drums and bass lines, and like starting from that angle. And I was wondering if that was because of necessity, because of the nature of the album, or if that was just something that you had always kind of wanted to go that route or experiment with that.
Well, it's the same approach to songwriting as like top lining and like pop song writers will often do. And I know but for other people who are listening, someone will build a track, and then a singer or songwriter lyricist will come and write the lyric and the melodies over the track that's already there. It's just a different way of doing it. Ultimately, for me, I feel like the acoustic guitar at this point, and that is largely based on my lack of knowledge of the instrument, at this point, it limits me. And I feel like it steers me into writing a certain kind of song with drums and bass as the basis for the song. I feel like it gives me so many different possibilities. And also, Americana genre is such an interesting relationship, I think, for all artists. I don't think any artist really likes being put into a genre. Mm-hmm. And Americana in particular has sort of chosen me just through the process of touring and having to present my music in a limited way, opening for other artists and stuff like that. And, we don't want electric guitars. We won't allow amps or drums on the stage for the opener, or I can't afford to fly a full band over to, Europe to do my first tour. And we'll just take acoustic guitars, to simplify things. And slowly, I kind of fell into that niche, but that's not really where I would categorize myself. So, it was important for me to push that boundary with this record too. And I do think starting with the drums and the bass helped me break out of that even more.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, as I understand both sides of the genre thing, because, at the end of, like, I guess, like, in the original intentions of any kind of genre label was to help listeners understand what they're listening to, I guess. But at the same time, on your end, yeah, it is very much a putting people in boxes. And, the more I think you talk with artists, the more you talk with bands and songwriters and everything like that, the less they think of themselves, or I guess, like, what I've realized is you guys think of yourself less as, I'm a certain kind of songwriter, and more, or even just as a songwriter, I'm just an artist. And that is obviously, like, that's just such a blank canvas for people to understand. But
well, it's all related to marketing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think marketing, there's an old school thought to the music business that we are very quickly leaving behind us. Everything is everywhere now with the internet. And I think that the genre did serve a purpose in a time when the only way you found out about music was through a magazine ad or the radio, just to know which station that you should be played on. But these days, it seems a little antiquated to me, the concept of genre. I mean, now, if somebody tells me about a new artist, I'll say, what's it like? And I'm expecting them to drop some genres and maybe, this artist cross with this artist, But it is still frustrating because I think fans can get married to a genre and come to expect an artist to stay within that genre. And some people will feel betrayed by you if you don't, continue creating art within those confines.
Yeah.
But I do think those days are trailing behind us, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, also at the same time, like, as a journalist, the thing that I would like more than anything is people to read the article that I've written about said artist, because I feel like that's a way better descriptor than calling someone country or Americana or a rock and roll songwriter, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that to me is like leaning on those kind of things. That's the way. And also, like, you mentioned, like, how it limits a fan base or a listener. It goes, I think, like, maybe the best example of that is you have, like, a lot of these diehard fans who don't listen to quote unquote top 40 music or top 40 country, and they're limiting themselves to some great artist that maybe they would like if they were just, if that wasn't right in front of their name. You get what I'm saying? Right.
Yeah. So, I don't like metal.
Yeah.
So they don't ever even listen to the artists in that category. Right?
Yeah. This episode is in part brought to you by Austin, Texas's Wild Gallery, a virtual art gallery featuring traditional and contemporary art by Native American artists. As you're probably aware, I'm not just an avid fan of music and film and novels, I absolutely love visual art as well. And as you probably also know, if you've been listening to New Slang for a while, you'll know just how often songwriters, they also dabble in various other mediums and are largely also inspired by other artists. One of the giant reasons I was drawn to Wild Gallery is that all of the art is produced by Native American artists, not only produced by, but inspired and influenced by other Native American artists, history, tradition, nature, stories, music, and just culture in general. If you head over to wild.gallery, that's WYLD.gallery, YLD.gallery, you'll see exactly what I mean. I've spent probably an hour scrolling and clicking through the various pieces. There's just some incredible pieces featured and such a vast array of styles as well. Everything from newer pieces inspired by both like the American West and a bright and bold pop art feel to more traditional fine art oil on canvas paintings. And then obviously there's plenty of pieces inspired by Native American traditions as well. Like I mentioned earlier, they're currently a virtual gallery. What's so great about that for you is that you're able to purchase these pieces from anywhere. And with Christmas coming up, they'd make perfect gifts. Talk about just like one of a kind, unique, and probably more importantly, well thought out gifts that'll excite anyone from your parents, your grandparents, your in-laws, siblings, yourself, really just whoever. And also, I'll be perfectly frank, it's time we have this talk. With everyone working at home these past few months, I've been on so many Zoom calls and I've seen so many Zoom call screenshots on social media, and we really need to talk about some of y'all's home office spaces. Too often, it's just that generic desk, maybe a poster that you had from college, maybe a calendar or like a whiteboard that you write on, and just those bare, bland walls. I'm just saying, we've all been there, but like right now would be the absolute perfect time to fill those walls with some great art. Go visit Wild Gallery and order a handful of these paintings that'll just really spruce up your background and make you look a little bit more adult and lively. When you're surrounded by art, you're more productive, you're more creative, and let's just face it, you're more happy. For me, that's why I fill up my walls with different art, because obviously you walk by them multiple times a day and you're able to like just take those little moments. You're able to appreciate all that effort and energy that was put into the art, and hopefully that kind of inspires you to go on and do more stuff in your day. Again, that's Wild with a Y. I'll throw a link into the show notes, as well as share some of my favorite pieces on Instagram and Twitter. I already have a few earmarked because I'll be ordering them soon myself. Again, that's Austin, Texas's Wild Gallery, featuring a blend of traditional and contemporary art by some of the most gifted Native American artists. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, well, getting back onto the record, and because I'm really interested in I guess like exploring those, the other ways that these songs, I guess, originated, where you're figuring out other instruments to begin songs. Was that like just obviously like a refreshing way of approaching a song, or have you done this in the past, or like what I guess like what have you thought about that as far as like kind of like, looking back on how a lot of these songs started?
It's funny. Some of them were so embarrassingly easy to write with this approach. Like I'm hesitant to pull the curtain back too much. No, I think, gosh, it really helps to have a room all to yourself and be able to record and have unlimited time, and you don't have to worry about studio fees or someone else's opinion, and you can just throw paint on the canvas, and if you don't like it, paint over it, For some of these songs, I would just go into the studio every day. That was part of my process. I forced myself to work every day from like 11 to 5 with a lunch break. And I would just start with something, I would start like I borrowed a Mellotron from a friend. I would just find a sound that I thought was cool, for instance, or maybe I would start with a drum machine, or maybe I would build a loop myself with some samples that I was recording myself, and just follow it. I mean, having no plan was the most liberating aspect of the whole process. And then when it came time to write lyrics, I would just think about topics. I tried to write about things that I haven't written about, which is hard because ultimately it all comes down to love and death. But, like with Let Me Tell You Something, that song is about a conversation I had with my father when I was in college, where he was lecturing me and telling me, not only was my major in anthropology a mistake, but also trying to pursue anything creative as a career was a mistake, because the chances of failure are really high. And he was right. And I understand where he was coming from, but I really liked the idea of writing a song about that and releasing it. Then there's another song on the record called Isolation. It's just kind of about technology and how it is killing our ability to relate to each other, and how we're all living in a virtual world, which is especially true now. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I wrote Isolation before the pandemic, but now I'm really grateful for the internet, because it's kind of our only, communication line to the outside world. That is a double-edged sword, isn't it? But yeah, those are definitely songs that I wrote the track for, kind of top-lined. And then there was a song called Make You Okay that just fell on me. It just happened, and that was with a guitar in my hand. And I think you can hear that in the song, even though it's not acoustic guitar based, but that's how it was written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what I love so much about this is because I think all of you starting these songs, or primarily starting a lot of these songs with drum machines and different instrumentations, they add all that texture to a lot of these songs that if I was just telling someone that you were putting out a new record that you self-produced and played all the instruments, I think the majority of people would just think it's an acoustic guitar solo album, like that style. And this is, not that at all. I feel like you still have so much of those vibrant, dark tones that you've kind of heard in a lot of your songs. And I don't know, I find that just to be like refreshing, like that you didn't necessarily just go down what I think what most people would think that would be a quote unquote I Did Everything album. So yeah, I wanted to go back on to the song that you're talking about, the conversation with your father. Was that kind of like an idea that you've had forever, that you were like, this is a song, I don't know if I'm ready to write it? Or was this like a new revelation to like, oh, you know what, that would actually be a great song?
Well, it's a thought that's always been in the back of my mind because, for a number of reasons. I did get a degree in anthropology, and I did pursue, and I am pursuing a career in music. And I always hear him saying, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. And I sometimes think, I wonder where I would be if he had been supportive of that vision instead, if I would be any further down this path. But I definitely have wanted to write about it. Hadn't figured out how to write about that. Like you can't sing a song like my dad once said to me, it's like, so I decided to have the conversation be written from his perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think that is just confusing enough for the listener to maybe keep them engaged. Because if I'm listening to it, I can see how one would easily interpret the chorus as being, real advice. And it is multi-layered, because he did have my best interest at heart. He wanted me to have a good job and make money and, be self-sustaining. That was his main concern. But the part that he was missing is that ultimately, if you are fighting against your passion, you're never going to be happy. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a very, I'm very empathetic on his side of things too. You know what I mean? Like it's, and I think that's like an important aspect to kind of understand is understanding both sides of, the story, I guess, the conversation, as you put it. It's important to understand like that it wasn't out of, you know, I guess like, it wasn't out of cruelty, I guess, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of times we can think of it that way. What I think is really interesting too about that is how, you know, sometimes song ideas, they come to you when you're ready to write them, versus even though you've maybe had them for a while. And I guess like it feels like now was like just like the right time for you to write that.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously also, this is like coming off of kind of like a 180 off of your last record where, you know, it was so much about collaboration. What did you, now like looking back, do you feel like, what did you learn out of like, you know, co-writing and collaborating with all these other artists that have, I guess, maybe helped, I guess, push this record? Has there been anything like that?
That's a really interesting question. Just because they're so different and the process is so different, but I'm sure there were some lessons from the collaborative album that I used in this record. You know, writing with several different people really forced me to learn how to let go of my own ideas. Because everyone's writing style is different and everyone's, you know, method of processing other people's ideas is different. Some people are like highly rejective, or insistent that their ideas be used. And some people just sort of wait for you to make the suggestions. But regardless of who you're writing with and how they write, I think I learned you just have to be ready to let go of everything. And I think that did free me up in a big way for this record, that I, you know, was never married to any of the ideas, any of the lyrics or melodies or even tracks. There's several tracks that I worked, you know, for weeks on that ultimately didn't make the cut. And all artists go through that when they're making records, but somehow doing it all on my own, it was a little bit more difficult for me to let go of those things. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned from Plays Well With Others project. Yeah,
like it's very like letting go of something is very difficult. Obviously, it's I don't know. I find that so it's because I guess like in part like that's at the core like kind of why you started playing to begin with in a way is, you know, trying to share these ideas and then like you just don't want to give up on them necessarily, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think that's just really that I guess like that struggle of figuring out if it's just if it's a lost cause or not.
Yeah.
But
that's really challenging when you're working by yourself.
Yeah. I can see I love like the I guess like the idea of like you said, you know, you going into the studio and like, I hate to say the word force, but like forcing yourself to like work X amount of hours a day and do that daily. I love like personally, like I love just like kind of being by myself and working on stuff by myself. But on the other side, it's very, very easy to start second guessing yourself and kind of being like lost in the woods and just being unsure of what you're doing and kind of
my gosh.
going,
yes.
Is this even worth it? You know, so
go ahead.
Oh, I just kind of like you get lost out there and kind of go, am I doing this right? Is this worth it? Like you just hear yourself, second guessing yourself constantly.
I think that was a huge part of the process for me, too, was just kind of like regular meltdowns. So I started painting during this process. I mean, I started painting, started paintings previously in my life, but while I was working on this record, I found that it was really helpful for me to go paint when I reached those points of uncertainty. And when I started to second guess my decisions and intuition, I would paint and try and switch my brain over completely, kind of like palate cleanse my brain, and then go back and listen to what I had done. And that really helped me gauge whether or not I was on the right track. And I'll say that, also, I have to credit a couple of my friends that I would have listen to stuff once I thought it was mostly done, and just gauge their experience listening to it on how good it was. And that, if you can't really create in a complete vacuum, so gosh, it's such an interesting thing, because I think a lot of people have this ideal of artists creating without ever considering what other people will think or how other people will hear it. But you're making music for other people to listen to. I mean, I guess in a certain phase of the creation process, you're making music just for catharsis or because it feels good or whatever. That being completely for yourself. But eventually, if you're doing music as a career, you know that other people are going to listen to it. And at some point, you do have to consider that a little bit. Although I tried really hard not to. That's another complex relationship, just sort of projecting other people's experience listening to your music.
Yeah, well, it's very... I mean, I think we all kind of love the romanticism of the artist, right? But it's so hard to work in those absolutes. It's hard, like you mentioned just a second ago, the vacuum. It's hard to just create in that vacuum and just not take into account if it's, for lack of a better term, listenable, or if it's relatable.
In the case of this record, the song, like, Let Me Tell You Something, I think most people would say, well, that doesn't really go with your other music. So no, like, that's a perfect example of how, freeing yourself from that can open different doors.
This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. There is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. Yeah, you mentioned painting. I was actually going to bring that up because I saw on your Instagram that you had shared a painting that was, I think, like, as you put it, like it was inspired by a light comes through. And you kind of already touched on it, like being a palate cleanser, a way to stop if you hit that wall, to just take a break and work on something else that eventually kind of helps you out. Like, I guess, like, can you expand on that? Like, what was, like, how did you get back into painting, and, like, how did you realize this is something that is part of the creative process as a whole?
I love painting because there is zero pressure around it for me. There's, I never have to share it with anyone. I don't have to produce a certain amount, and painting is another one of those things that I go into with zero plan in mind. There's something really thrilling about just painting. There's this kind of adrenaline rush at the very beginning when I just kind of start throwing paint on there and just watch what happens and really follow where the paint leads me. I think it was important for this album process because I would use it to sort of go deeper into the feeling that I was trying to portray in the song, or the feelings that I was trying to explore and illustrate through the song, in a different medium.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I kind of sound like a new age weirdo.
I think it's all like, I think like it challenges listeners to, or like just listeners in general, not necessarily listeners of my podcast, but listeners in general to like think of these songs as bigger than just the songs. But then also I think like I don't know. I think it kind of goes back to that whole genre thing that I was just talking about a minute ago. Not like limiting yourself to just being quote unquote a songwriter, even though, as you just said, you don't have a quota or anything like remotely close to that when it comes to painting, but it does help out.
Yeah, gosh, just looking back on it, there's so much goes into every song. I mean, for most, songwriters, good songwriters, I think, it can be years of experience
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so much work and so much emotion and thought goes into making that 3.5 minutes as succinct and compelling as possible.
Yeah, like that's also it. What I love talking about is, and that's kind of like one of my more bigger things is the romanticism of writing. Where sometimes I think we also think of you guys as the writing of the song is only when you pick up the guitar and start strumming and you start writing down the words, and that's almost like just like the smallest part of the process. It's like all those hours that you've been kind of thinking about the song, that it's been kind of marinating, and you've been
it's like
kind of
pulling the car into the garage after you've been driving for 5 days or something.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I find that really interesting, and I guess like again, like kind of the perfect example of that is, let me tell you something, because like you've kind of been thinking about that for a while. One of the things I want to
or Make You Okay is another good example of that too. Just that experience of wanting to fix someone that is really hurting
mm-hmm.
emotionally. That I was writing from a child's perspective and from my own perspective as an adult. But gosh, I mean, I have been meditating on that idea my entire life and trying to stop fixing people too. It's a deep one.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say is also just on Let Me Tell You Something. You have like that little like cough, that little like clearing of your throat. I guess like where the second verse starts. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that, but like I like as far as what it can represent and everything. But I just really love that moment because to me it's kind of like a really real, but it also as a listener you kind of like get if you've zoned out a second, it makes you go back and listen. What I guess like what for that right there, like what went into like adding that, I guess, or like having that as a part of the song?
Yeah, I feel like I was trying to embody a certain character for that, and it just happened. And I was like, oh yeah, that works. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I played it for my boyfriend, he was like, oh, are you gonna take that out? Like he thought it was a mistake. And I was like, nah, I'm leaving it in there. Ooh.
Well, what I love about it is it is a little bit of the like the authority figure, I guess. Like I can remember my mom like trying to get my attention back by doing like a cough like that, or like, you know what I mean? Or a teacher or something. So like, I think it works for that character as you say. So,
yeah. It's been fun as I'm getting older and feel a little bit more comfortable, slightly more comfortable in my own skin. It's been fun to explore things like that and not feel so restricted, like I have to be a certain way, sing a certain way, or always be the same kind of character singing in songs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I don't know. What I think so interesting is and I guess like it's really tied to what you're just saying there, is like the projection of like the idea of who you are as an artist. I guess like that happens for y'all as well, as like who how do I, who is Lera Lynn as an artist, and can we do those things? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another big reason why I ended up making this record by myself. I think I was really looking to a collaborator, a co-producer, or co-writer to help me state my identity with this record, because I did do a duets record last, and it's time for me to say, okay, here's my music. This is who I am. And I ultimately felt like I couldn't ask someone else to show me that that path. You know, that's something you got to find on your own.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I find that so just an interesting thing that, or an interesting conversation about the artist, because I guess like just and a lot of times when you think about an artist, you think of them as like just knowing who they are already. Like they're confident. Like this is like what I do, and these songs are about me and all that, everything that's attached to that. But obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. The more you talk with people, the more you realize that there are anxieties that are attached to that, and there's a lot. They're not necessarily all. There's a lot more, I guess, introverts as artists than there are probably extroverts, and
sure.
So I don't know. I there was a point I was going to make about that, but go ahead.
It helps me to remind myself that every record is just a snapshot of where you are at that point in life. That no one record defines any person or any artist. I mean, how can 10 songs define a person? You know, it's like if you ask any person, anyone, any music listener in the world, define yourself in 10 songs. Nobody can do that. You know, like there's just everyone's too complex and has had too many experiences and feelings. And I think for me, at least, letting go of that idea of a record defining me was really liberating, you know, and I think that it allowed me to do a lot of things I wouldn't have done otherwise. And honestly, that approach was what was disabling the process for me earlier on.
Yeah. I kind of remember what I was going to say. It relates to exploring all those other instruments and starting songs out differently. Obviously, like, was that, I think for a lot of people, I guess, let me backtrack. For a lot of people, picking up a new instrument can be intimidating. You as an artist who's already been doing this for a while, is it the same feeling of maybe intimidation when exploring an instrument that you're not necessarily familiar with, or is it more, I don't know, like, is it more just like, oh, this is something new that I can explore, or is it both?
It's a little both. Yeah. I mean, at one point in the process, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have so-and-so come and play drums on this and so-and-so play guitar. And then I was like, no, I should just try it myself. I mean, I live in Nashville, and pretty much everyone who plays instruments in this town is a badass, you know? So the idea of me picking up a bass in the studio with other people and saying, like, let me track this bass part is way intimidating, because everyone in the room is 10 times the bass player that I am, you know? I don't think I would have had the balls to do it if there'd been people around. And, you know, even now, like, listening back to it, I'm like, oh God, how are all the bass players going to think my bass parts sound, you know? But yeah, it is intimidating, new instruments, for sure. And what's even more intimidating, what I found even more intimidating, was just learning to navigate Pro Tools and miking techniques and how to set preamps and compressors. And, you know, I had no idea really what I was doing. I mean, I've had limited experience making records and watching other people do the work. And, you know, like, I'll help set the level, but YouTube was really helpful.
That's what I was going to say. How much was just watching YouTube?
Yes. Every day, like, help, YouTube.
Yeah. I think that like that's very relatable to what a lot of people are doing during this quarantine time, is because I've talked with a lot of people about how, I've started doing this. I started doing this. I started playing, Zoom shows, and I've been playing on Facebook or Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And, in theory, a lot of that is very, very easy. And it is fairly easy if you just want to like start playing in front of
your iPhone.
Yeah. But also like then you as an artist, a lot of people have been going, let's make it, let's set up mics and let's set up lights and let's do all this stuff. And then it's like, actually there's a lot more of a learning curve than I was, I guess.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I want people to know, who are listening, how much work goes into these live stream shows that people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually really difficult.
Yeah.
Just to get Facebook to work, for instance, for a live stream is a whole mind fuck. And then you put on top of it like miking and getting all of the hardware to work together so that you're getting the mic sounds into the computer and into the live stream. It's not simple. I feel like some people are like, oh yeah, why don't you just record a video of yourself singing a few songs for this or that? And I'm like, you kidding me? That's going to take days of work. It's not, it's not just like, cool, let's just press play,
Yeah. Yeah.
All to say, when you're watching a live stream thing, keep that in mind. People are working really hard behind the scenes to bring you that.
Yes, exactly. Like when I say it looks easy, it's because like in theory you go, hey, let's just play. We'll just set up a live stream. It'll be easy. And
yeah, you're at home. You don't have to drive anywhere.
It's all that other stuff that goes where it's like, I was talking with someone that they were saying how, they set up, and like another thing that people underrate is if you have like lighting and how hot that can be.
Yeah.
But like, I guess like they had set up and they had done a few shows once a week kind of thing, and how, they finish a song and they lean in and like they're reading some comments, and one of the comments was, oh, it sounds awful. Can you guys do blah, 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 blah? And it's like, it's probably like the shitty, like microphones on your end. You know what I mean? Like they didn't say that, but it's like, if you knew how much it was how much time and process it was to set all this up, you would realize that it's probably like you listening to the stream on your phone, and not because
it's actually far easier and far more fun to go set up at a venue and play a show.
Yeah,
than it is to do a live stream. I'll take that any day.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, I think that very much relates to what you're talking about as far as learning how to, the trial and error of recording yourself and making it right. So I think it's very relatable. I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, Soto is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. One of the things I always want to, circle back on is, how does this relate to, like, when you're first starting out initially in your career as far as becoming a quote-unquote singer-songwriter? Since for most people, when you start out, it is just you an instrument, your words, singing?
Such an interesting question. I've recently been going through or looking for photos of myself playing music at the very beginning for a project that I'm working on. And I've been reminiscing a lot and just looking back on myself then and how just naive and free I was in the whole thing. And how I never considered when I was releasing music that this is forever now. Like, this music, as long as we're here, this music is going to be there. It's going to be somewhere accessible, which can completely disable you creatively if you really let that sink in too far. But I look back on my old music and I think, gosh, she had something to say, I guess, but I really had no direction. I really had no plan, and there's something to say for that too, I guess. But gosh, it just seems like it takes so long. It takes so much work to even begin to understand the subtlety of songwriting and how much impact 3 words can have, in a lyric, and how much impact 1 chord change can have in the feeling of the song. Or, gosh, I mean, I feel like I'm just now on the tip of the iceberg of that, whereas before I was somewhere far out in the ocean, in the tropics. There's still so much to learn. I think maybe I thought I was a better songwriter than I was, and thought I was better than I am now. Although I know that I'm a better songwriter now. But do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's so this is going to be like a weird comparison. I think I've made this comparison before, but so like in professional sports, like I'm a big basketball fan. I love the NBA, and one of the things that they talk about as far as like a player in the NBA is when you're like 18, you're like at really like the peak of your athletic powers, right? You can do all kinds of amazing athletic things, but the reason why like rookies and second and third year players don't win championships is because they don't have the experience, right? They don't have they don't have all the fundamentals and all the tricks of knowing how the game really works. And you don't learn those until later on. And like
after you've made plenty of mistakes.
Yeah. And what's funny about all that too, and like maybe it's the tragic aspect of it, is like by the time you learn all those really great things to win, all the winning plays, if you will, all of your athleticism is steadily declining. And so your prime for most players is between the years of like 28 and like 31, 32. And then, it soon falls off after that. But like, so in comparison or applying that to artistry, when you start off, you're so full of I guess like that, being naive, like, as you mentioned it, because like you don't know any better. Right. And so then like once you start understanding the industry, understanding artistry, understanding yourself better, you do look back and go, oh man, like who is that person? Or like that person was really bold and didn't necessarily know as much as you do now. And so it's this weird thing where you you're better, but maybe like also what kind of gave you the boost early on was being so naive to to everything. And I think that you can apply that to not just artistry, but just really any field.
Absolutely. I think that's why when you encounter a young artist who is subtle, understands all of that stuff about music, it's just so mind blowing. It's like they've lived, 100 lives before or something. When you can combine wisdom and virility, you get something amazing that's so rare. And we're all kind of fighting against aging, especially in the entertainment industry, and especially as a woman. It's a really big part of it. That's kind of an odd segue, but that's something that, is always in the back of my mind too. I feel like that's changing though for a lot of younger women. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because I think it is important. And two, I feel there is at the very minimum, I guess, like more dialogue about it. There's more, I guess there's more, I hate to say the word accepting, but like I don't know if there's a better word for it. There's more understanding, I guess, from, like just your average, I guess, like white guy.
I feel like marketing has sort of invaded our minds for many years. Like being older is not marketable. Aging is not marketable. Being pregnant is not marketable. Not wearing makeup, it's like all of these things have been fed to us for so long. And I see the younger generation really refusing to follow those norms. And I'm really glad for it. It's something that I've had to face head on this year because I've just had a baby. Mm-hmm. And it's something
Congratulations, by the way.
I have feared doing my entire career. I have had this idea that if I have a child, my career will be over because I will no longer be, fuckable, as it were. I'll be a mom, which is not cool. It's not rock and roll. I sound super cool when I say rock and roll too, so I just wanted to slip that in. But no, I was so inspired by Beyonce's performance at the Grammys when she was pregnant with twins. She was like, fuck it, I'm going to get on stage with this giant belly and I'm going to absolutely dominate and totally sit in my power as a mother, because it is completely magical. The whole thing that happens it's just mind blowing. Just to see a woman get up there and do that, I think reset everything for us.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's such obviously there's the double standards of it. And I don't know. I just, I guess it's easy for a lot of people to just play the ignorant or naive card on this. Because sometimes you just don't think about it, or you're not thinking about it. And I don't think of that as necessarily an excuse on for even myself, but like maybe an explanation on like, oh, well, that's why I've not really thought about that, because it's not necessarily a problem that's for me. You get what I'm saying? And it's
sure, it's not an experience, not a personal experience of your own.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. I find like you said, like with the Beyonce, or there's one of my friends here in Texas, her name is Jamie Lynn Wilson, and she is an artist and a mom, and she's been playing throughout her career while having a few kids. And I think like a lot of people have seen her do that and go, oh, maybe I don't have to stop being a musician all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like, and I think like that's, even though like a lot of most artists are liberal leaning, that still happens in this world where you think like, oh, it's time to go and be a mom, or like a stay-at-home mother, or whatever the case, or I can't do that. And I find that such a, again, like that's not an experience I have, but like I empathize for that on that side.
Yeah, that's important. It's real life. people have babies. That's how we keep going, you know? And I do feel like people are becoming more accepting of real life every day. There's a song on the record called What I'm Looking For that I wrote last year, just after I was told by my doctor that I missed the chance for having children. Without going too far into detail, just like that I basically am too old to have kids. Not that it was necessarily a big goal of mine, you know, like I said, I've always thought like, no kids, I can't do kids and tour, you know. I'll get to it someday maybe, but when I was given that news, it really made me step back and look at my life and say, like, what am I doing exactly? Where am I going with this whole thing? Because at a certain point, it feels like, am I going to miss out on life because I'm chasing this dream that I may or may not ever realize? Mm-hmm. Am I going to wake up in 10 years and say, fuck, I have nothing to show for my life except a couple of records that I made? So yeah, that thought, and particularly just trying to decide what's most important to me, that all made its way into this record, I think. Really wanting to take control of my own destiny, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it all relates back to this like image thing that we have, right? Where it's like, we want you guys to be real. We want you to write about these really raw feelings, but then also like none of the baggage.
Be single, be hot, be young.
None of the baggage attached to that stuff, right? It's like, and I'm throwing another sports analogy out there, but it's like, that's super big in sports too, where it's like, we want all of our, you know, our professional athletes to be engaging and have these like really amazing personalities and do all these great commercials and just be off the cuff until they say something real. And then it's like, mm-hmm. no, that's too real.
Right.
So I think like that's the same thing with y'all, as far as like, be real and be vibrant and be the rock and roll star.
But only do it in this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please don't have an opinion, and please don't air it if you do.
Yeah. Well, what I was also wanting to ask about in connection to this is, yeah, like I think there is this dialogue, and there is a lot more people being okay with themselves earlier on, I guess, as artists. But like right now, since there is the pandemic, since there are virtually no shows, how much of it do you feel, or is there any hesitation, do you feel like, where it's not going to necessarily be easy as far as equal ground, equal footing going forward, as far as like stuff that really matters as far as touring and like lineups? And because like it feels like there's still such a lean towards there not being a lot of women headlining shows, and you've seen plenty of festival lineups where they have everyone and they take all the men names off, and it's like 4 or 5 maybe women on the bill. I guess like when it goes to that, like what is there any hesitation? Is there any like, what do you feel about that? I guess I'll just stop talking.
Well, okay. So I guess I'm taking from your question, women's place in music. Do I see it changing?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, do you think like all of this is like maybe lip service from the industry, I guess? Like,
no, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Okay. There's so many people involved in getting a record out to you, to the general public. There's, from, you know, it starts with the songwriting, obviously, and then it gets produced and made with the musicians in the studio, and then it gets mixed and it gets mastered, and then there's the person who makes the artwork for the album, and then there's this whole other side of the business that's not associated with making the records. And I know you probably know most of this, but those are the people that are distributing your records online, getting it onto Spotify or iTunes or Apple Music, or getting it into stores. There's people that are running sound at venues when you go play shows. There are people who are booking the shows at venues. There are tour managers, people that are getting the band where they need to go, that are booking all the hotel rooms and dealing with all the travel logistics. And the list just goes on and on and on. For you to see a show or hear a record, there are so many more people involved than most people realize. And the reason I know that the business is changing is because a large number of those people are women now, and they're kicking ass. And a large number of people that are working on my team are women. I just realized it one day. I was like, wow, everyone on the business side over here and on my team is a female. That's amazing, because there was a time when that, definitely was not the case.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah. Because I mean, on my side, I don't know, I guess. Like I can be very negative about things, very glass half empty, and go, is it just going to be, yeah, sure. And like when things go back to normal, just kind of going, well, it wasn't we can't do it now. But yeah, like I guess like just having, that's with anything, I think, for change to happen, for there being an understanding on a voice on the other side, is when you have more diversity in the room, you understand better, like everything basically, I guess. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I think that we definitely have a lot more work to do. But I see women playing lead guitar now. I see women producing records and engineering records and running sound at venues and lights at venues and, writing film scores. And that's just going to continue to increase, I think. And that's another reason, again, that I made this record on my own, is like, I want to demonstrate to other women that they can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great record. And I think like, it's a great message as well. And I think that a lot of people are going to understand that. So,
good. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, it's been really, really great talking with you. I think we've covered a lot of great subjects here.
Yeah, we have. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you as well. All right. That is it for this one. Thanks so much to Lera for taking the time. Check out her new album called On My Own, out this Friday, October 23rd. Go stop over at our partners over at Desert Door, The Blue Light Live, and Wild Gallery. All those links are in the show notes. Check out the Patreon feed if you haven't yet. Stop by the merch store. And yeah, I'll see y'all next week for more new slang.